Okay, so we're now going to start on my Bernina Embroidery book. I'm going to start on page 18. And on page 18, we're doing some editing of basic embroidery designs. These designs are the ones that your Bernina dealer should have given you for training, and I actually have them all installed on my USB stick. I'm going to go ahead to embroidery. Let's bring up my USB stick. Bernina, Master Embroidery Designs. These are the designs that we're going to be working on, editing, duplicating, doing all the things that our embroidery machine can do. So the first design that I'm going to pick is 1245-08, which is that one. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is look at our screen. It says it's going to be 4 minutes to stitch this out. The design is 66 by 106 millimeters. My tension is set at 3. I'm using the embroidery foot to 26. I have a medium hoop on. I have the single stitch plate on. So let's go ahead and we're going to do some editing to this design. So we want to go and hit the I for information. So we want to rotate this design. Rotate is shown by that. And we have 90 degrees. As you can see, my design is now rotating at a 90 degree. Now it's completely upside down. It's 180, 270. But what if you want to only go, say, 10 degrees? So I can use my upper knob, and you'll notice it's moving by 1 degrees. So now I can customize. I can go to let's go to a 25 degree one. So both knobs do the same. I can go down or up. It doesn't matter which knob you use. Let's go to 25, and there I am. So now I can go right back out of this, and my design is set at 25. Okay, we're going to look at adjusting the height and width of this motif. So let's go back into our eye, and this is adjusting the height and width. Let's say I just want to increase, that was done. Okay, say I want, this is going to adjust the width. So I can make it wider or skinnier. If I want to make it taller, it's the lower knob. So I can make it much taller. I'll come back down. If I want to go back to its original values, I just touch on the knob, touch on the icon. Let's say I want to keep it proportional. Let's hit the lock. See, there's a white box around that icon. Now I can, doesn't matter which knob you use. Now I'm proportionally increasing both the height and width. Now you'll notice that I'm going a little bit bigger. I now have a red box around here. So that's telling me I'm outside of my embroidery zone. Let's go back down to here. And I can make it a little skinnier. And that's adjusting, or that's what I call resizing. Okay, so let's just go back to the 100%. And now we're going to do a mirrored image. So you don't have to always hit the X out of here. I can hit the I for my breadcrumb, and now I'm back into that menu. So let's do a mirrored image. This icon is standard on all Bernina machines. So you'll notice that it flipped to the left, flipped to the right. As you can see that the mirror image is up and down, so I'm flipping it this way to that way. Let's flip it up and down. Now you'll notice that when I flipped it upside down, I got the red around the screen, so it's telling me I'm outside of my embroidery zone. Still outside. Let's flip it back to this way. So it's telling me, let's go back into here and let's make this a little bit smaller so that I'm now within my embroidery area. And now I flipped it upside down. There's no red mark. And then I can just flip it to the way I'd prefer. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is duplicate this design. And there are a couple of ways of doing this on the Bernina 570. We can touch the duplicate icon, which is right here. Now you'll see that I have 2 layers. This is very important, especially in embroidery software. Layer 1 was the very first one I did. I'm now on layer 2. You can see that that layer is active. The color is different. Everything else is grayed out. I could even duplicate it again. Now I have 3. And you can see the 3rd layer is active. I can arrow through. Now I have 1, 2, 3. Well, I don't need 3 layers for this. Let's go ahead and delete 1 layer. If I hit the delete button now, it's going to delete my layer 1. Or I can just tap on one of these layers and delete that one. So be careful when you're deleting that you're on the right layer or the correct layer. Am I sure? Yes. So I'm going to add another layer back in here, and I'll show you the other way of doing it. I can select whichever layer I want to delete, and I can either move it to the left or to the right, and it'll come up, do you want to delete that layer? Yes. So there are 2 ways of deleting a motif on your Bernina 570. So I'm going to take this design and we're going to add some motifs to it, and then we're going to center it. So I'm working on page 21 in your Bernina Embroidery workbook. So let's add 2 layers to this design. So into my eye, let's add. I now have 2 layers to this. So let's talk about stitch density. In my information submenu, let's tap on here. I'm going to enable this. So what this is doing is it's telling me to change it from a satin stitch to what's called a step stitch. And a step stitch, instead of being a complete zigzag, it will do stitch, 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 and then it alternates the next row so that they're staggered. If you're filling a large area, you don't want to have all satin stitch. A step stitch looks pleasing. Also, you don't want a satin stitch that's too big because then your stitch quality will be very poor. A step stitch is a beautiful way to replace a satin stitch that might be too big. So I've now enabled step stitches on, and I can adjust the stitch length of it. So it says that if it's at 8, it will do a step stitch, but maybe I want my, let's go down to a 5. So anything that's 5 millimeters or higher is going to be a step stitch. Now this is the density. I may want to change the density. I may want it less dense, and I would hit a minus. Let's go to a 90%. So it's not going to completely fill that stitch. You will see some of the background fabric through it. That's what your density is doing. Now, if you increase your density, that's going to be quite thick on your embroidery. So there will be occasions where you need to increase the densities. Say you've increased the motif size and you would like your satin stitch, or in this case our step stitch, to be a little fuller. You need the density of the stitches to completely cover your background.